Chapter 1. Genesis, the Birth of Bitcoin, 2008-2009. The year was 2008. The world's financial foundations were crumbling. On Wall Street, banks once considered too big to fail were collapsing like fragile dominoes. In Europe, governments scrambled to rescue failing institutions with taxpayer bailouts. Across the globe, ordinary people watched their life savings evaporate as the machinery of modern finance revealed its cracks. It was in this climate of uncertainty and anger that a pseudonymous figure emerged from the shadows. Satoshi Nakamoto, a name that would one day echo in history alongside inventors like Gutenberg, Newton, or Turing. But in 2008, Satoshi was only a whisper on a cryptography mailing list. The White Paper. On October 31, 2008, as the world staggered under the weight of the financial crisis, Satoshi shared a 9-page PDF titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. To the untrained eye, it looked like another obscure academic paper, but for the cypherpunks who received it, it was electrifying. In clear, simple language, Satoshi proposed a system of money that required no banks, no governments, and no middlemen. Instead, transactions would be recorded on a shared public ledger, secured not by trust in an institution, but by cryptography and collective computation. The key innovation was the blockchain, a chain of blocks, each containing transactions linked together by cryptographic proofs. This chain would be immutable, tamper-proof, and accessible to anyone. And for the first time in history, the double spending problem, the challenge of preventing the same digital coin from being spent twice, was solved without needing a central authority. It was an idea that combined the scattered fragments of DigiCash, Hashcash, B-Money, and BitGold into a single functioning whole. For the cypherpunks, this was no mere technical curiosity. It was a revolution in waiting. The Genesis block. On January 3, 2009, Satoshi Nakamoto mined the first block of the Bitcoin network. It contained a hidden message encoded forever in digital stone. The Times, 03, Jan 2009 Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. This was no coincidence. Satoshi had chosen a headline from the British newspaper The Times, marking the political and economic moment of Bitcoin's birth. The message was both a timestamp and a statement. Bitcoin was born as a protest against the failures of centralized finance. The block became known as the Genesis block, the foundation of a new monetary order. The first followers, in those early days, Bitcoin was little more than an experiment. The software was clunky, the user base tiny. Mining was done on ordinary computers, with rewards of 50 BTC per block, coins that were, at the time, essentially worthless. Yet within the cryptography mailing lists, curiosity spread. A few brave souls downloaded the client and joined Satoshi's strange new experiment. One of them was Hal Finney, a respected cryptographer and one of the earliest cypherpunks. Finney was no stranger to bold ideas. He had worked on PGP, pretty good privacy, one of the most important encryption tools of the 1990s. On January 12, 2009, Finney received the first-ever Bitcoin transaction when Satoshi sent him 10 BTC. At the time, those coins couldn't buy a coffee, but they symbolized something monumental, the first peer-to-peer exchange of decentralized digital money in history. Finney was enthusiastic, famously tweeting, "Running Bitcoin." Others followed. Developers tinkered with the code. Enthusiasts debated its implications, and miners began to experiment. But outside this small circle, almost no one cared. Skepticism and silence. The wider world barely noticed Bitcoin's birth. To economists, it seemed like another failed experiment in funny money. To bankers, it was irrelevant noise. Even within the cypherpunk community, opinions were divided. Some saw it as ingenious, others doubted it could scale or survive. Could strangers really secure a global financial system using nothing more than cryptographic puzzles and distributed consensus? For Satoshi, the criticism didn't matter. Patiently, often quietly, he responded to emails, clarified concepts, and released software updates. He seemed less interested in convincing the world than in proving Bitcoin worked. The philosophy of Bitcoin. What drove this mysterious creator? Though Satoshi's true identity remains unknown, their writings reveal a philosophy. Bitcoin was more than a technical invention. It was a statement of values. Decentralization, no single point of control. Scarcity, a fixed supply of 21 million coins, immune to inflation by design. Transparency, a ledger open to all, auditable by anyone. Trustlessness, no need to rely on governments or banks, only mathematics. It was in many ways a declaration of independence for money. As Satoshi wrote, "The root problem with conventional currency is all the trust that S required to make it work. The central bank must be trusted not to debase the currency, but the history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust." Bitcoin sought to remove trust from the equation, replacing it with cryptographic certainty. The quiet beginning of a storm. By the end of 2009, Bitcoin was still obscure, known only to a niche community of programmers and cryptographers. There were no exchanges, no price, no headlines. It was a child in its infancy, fragile and untested. Yet the spark had been lit. The Genesis block was not just a string of code, it was a seed planted in fertile soil, waiting for the right conditions to grow. The failures of DigiCash and B-Money had prepared the ground. The financial crisis had created the perfect climate of distrust. And Satoshi's invention had shown the world a path forward. Bitcoin was alive, but the world had not yet realized what had been unleashed.